Okay, we'll start with our third presentation this morning. So the presentation is going to be by Emily Alford and Cara Rollins. Emily Alford is a reference and technology librarian and high-tech space coordinator at Michigan State University Libraries. She is a graduate of the University of Michigan School of Information and specializes in science librarianship and technology-related projects. Cara Gust Rollins is a business librarian at the Gast Business Library at Michigan State University. She's a graduate of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where she received her Master of Science in Library and Information Science. She specializes in advertising, management, marketing, and supply chain management, along with library instruction. Emily and Cara are here today to share with us high-tech spaces at Michigan State University Libraries.
Good morning. Hopefully you will enjoy and learn from our talk. It's a little less big picture and more practical. We receive funding for spaces. We're given a timeline and a budget, and hope we kept to that timeline for the most part. And you're going to hear about that today. As one of my other duties as assigned, I'm the high-tech space coordinator at Michigan State University Libraries. What that means is I've been involved in the funding, design, building, running, creating, designing user guides for, tracking, maintaining, promoting, and updating of the current and future spaces at MSU. I had to read that because there's a lot of little words there. With the exception of the space that Cara's going to talk about in about 10 minutes. Since 2004 at Michigan State University, you can do the next slide, we've received funding for and built 6 small labs in the main library, 4 small labs in the engineering library, 1 in business. We call these our collaborative technology labs. We've also built 2 collaborative areas in the main library, which see a lot of use as well. These are larger open spaces with collaborative furniture that we built so the students could move the furniture around, create their own areas that best suited their group work. Funding for these projects has been from various sources. One of the ways that we've received funding, I joined the Classroom Technology Committee at Michigan State University. So I sit in on the meetings where they plan all of the classrooms across campus. And as the chair of that committee controls a lot of money to fund different projects across campus. And as being part of that committee, it's allowed me to talk about what we could do at the libraries. And they've been very generous with us because the library is not just a department. It's something that gets used for everyone across campus. So we've been able to do a lot through that, as well as other sources as well. These 2 banners sort of reflect the evolution of the lab since 2004. The first list, the first 2 labs we received funding for, at the bottom talks about things that we wanted them to know would be available to them there. And then this next, our most recent banner that is all over the libraries, just points them to the reservation system, because now we have so many spaces we can't list them all on one banner. So it's kind of a good thing. Here are some photos of different labs that we have at Michigan State. This is one of the first ones that was built. It has a whiteboard in it. It's called a copy cam. I'll explain how that works a little later. An Intel Mac computer in it, chairs, a coffee table. Next slide. This is also one of the first labs that was built. These were the 2 listed on the banner. Plasma screen, right now there's a DVD Blu-ray hooked up to it. There are also new chairs in there that have tablet arms, comfortable seating. Computer that has access to all the computer lab software on it. And now there's a SmartBoard with a projector that is actually part of the SmartBoard instead of one that hangs from the ceiling. Sorry, yes. Next slide, please. This is our copy center lab. This lab has 2 computers in it. It now has a more updated whiteboard and table and chairs in it. The main use of this is the design software that's available on these computers, because it's right next to our copy center where we have 3 plotters and lots of other high-end printing equipment. So students are using the design software, reserving this lab, and then using the copy center that's right next door, and the assistance expertise that they can get right there as well. Next slide, please. This is our presentation room. This room has a SmartBoard, computer, podium, large seating, seats up to 12, and also a camera in the ceiling so the students can record themselves in the front of the room. And then as many times as they want, they can practice their speeches and presentations, save it to DVD, replay it in the room, take it with them. Next slide, please. This is one small corner of one of the collaborative areas that we built in the library. The couch is not movable, but everything else is. This is just sort of an example of a space that the students put together with a couple of crushed cans, a movable chair. They use the wall. We have 3 movable walls in that area. They aren't, if you stand taller than them, but it allows for them to sort of create a space. And then movable chairs with tablet arms. Next slide, please. This is our most recent space. It was built, it's fairly large in square footage. These walls they don't officially close off any area within it. All the furniture is movable, and the students, every day I go up there, and it looks very different than it did the day before. We have couches, movable chairs, benches, tablet armchairs, one of which this was put in January. It has already been broken because somebody decided to stand on it to see how much it could hold up, and it did not hold up to a 160-pound male. But they are warranted, so it's already been fixed. Next slide, please. And these also are our most recent small labs that were built right next to our reference area on the first floor. As you walk into our building, they're very visible. And they have a SmartBoard computer that has all the computer lab software on it, 4 comfortable seats with tablet arms that nobody has stood on yet, and a table. These labs actually caused us to really appreciate the saying location, 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 because a lot of our labs, although they received use, it was a lot of the same people over and over, no matter how much we promoted them. But these labs went in front and center as you walk into the building, and use went up about 45% within a month of all of our labs that we had throughout the building. So, next slide, please. The types of technology that we have available in these labs varies. It depends on what we built them for. But there are computers, Intel Macs, Macs and PCs. Specialized software was put in originally. SmartBoards, we have a copy cam, plotters, high-resolution printers, video conferencing and teleconferencing, camera to record presentations. We used raised flooring, so there's all sorts of networking and electrical available throughout the labs that we built. So there's all sorts of technology that I can talk to you about that we've used. Next, please. This is one of the slides that was captured off of our copy cam, in case you don't know what that is. It's actually a whiteboard that the students can write on, and then they can either save it to the web, print it, or email it to themselves so they don't have to write it all down, everything that they do together. You can show the next couple of slides, 2 more, just another example, and then 1 more. We've made some changes already to the labs based on feedback. Originally, we had specialized software in 4 of the labs after talking to departments across campus and finding out what their needs were. These software products were very rarely used, it turned out, and incredibly expensive to keep updated. We've saved ourselves $2,500 a year per computer. Go back, please. We've saved ourselves $2,500 a year per computer, and we have over 12 computers associated with these labs right now. By using the university computer lab computer software, when MSU has a very, very large amount of software available on the computers, and the faculty there can also request for things to be added. So by doing that, we were able to update other parts of the labs instead of just the software each year. Some of the other changes we've made, we have Intel Macs in the labs, and originally what that means is you can use the computer as a Mac or as a PC. So when you first log in, you choose which side you want to go to, so the student, if they're a Mac or a PC user, has that option. But we found that the students on the Mac side were very clever, and they were breaking security protocols on the PC side on a daily basis. So we've now had to lock them down, so they are either a Mac or a PC. We didn't replace them, but we can't have them used for the original purpose that we purchased them. We originally didn't use SmartBoards in our labs. We had the copy cam, and we had the plasma TV that has a type of technology associated with it that is sort of like a SmartBoard. It has a pen that allows you to touch it to the screen and navigate or write on it. But this pen was incredibly, it's called a walk and talk was the technology, but it was really not user-friendly. We found that in a month it might get 1 or 2 uses. We've replaced that with a SmartBoard with a built-in projector that's in there because we've had good results with SmartBoards in other labs, and now it gets used 4 times a day. So anyway, you never know how students are going to use the technologies in the room. They might check out the room or the labs for the technology that's in it so they can record a presentation or use the projector and SmartBoard. Or they might find their own, now you can change the slide, use of the technology. This is all saved up on the web. We have I checked, there were about 50 student pictures. I had just taken 2. You can do the next one as well. That students, they've used the copy cam. If they stand in front of the board instead of writing on it and then capturing it, they can capture themselves. These were some of the more appropriate ones that I can show you. But it always is fun to see how they end up using their technology over time. With each lab comes a user guide for the technology. We include a binder that has the policies, procedures of the labs to check them out, how long they can use them, as well as simplified versions of the guides to actually operate the SmartBoard, how to capture things, or how to use the camera to record presentations. And this has been somewhat successful, although through the survey that we have and other feedback and assessment methods, we've discovered that some of the students don't bother to open that binder. So we get feedback back that says, tell us how to use this. And you're like, well, you took it with you, but okay. So sometimes that can be problematic. So we're trying to find another way to make sure that they're aware that that information is there with them. We reserve the labs, next slide, through a reservation system that's homegrown through the systems department at MSU Libraries. And I'm going to take you briefly through how you would do that. So the first thing you choose is your location. So if we choose the main library and a date, then we go to the next page. And we can choose which lab we want. We also reserve the scanner through this as well, because and the plotter, because they're so popular. And what it will do is it'll tell you exactly how long you can have it, the largest number of people that should be in that room, and it gives you a description of what's available to them so that they're able to understand where it is. Next. Then they can choose their time. This was last week. One of our labs, they were all basically booked from 8 a.m. until midnight. But as you can see, you can make reservations up to 2 hours normally. So if you choose 9 o'clock, you can go to the next page. And then normally you'd get up to 2 hours that you could choose to have the room. We just don't want somebody monopolizing the labs all day long. We do have groups that are smart about it, though, and one person will reserve 2 hours, and then the next person will reserve 2 hours. We don't stop them from doing that. And then you select the size of their group. Then we do make sure that they know that we know who they are if they're reserving the lab, so that we have, if anything is broken, that they'll be responsible. And under purpose, you can select meeting or group study, and there are about 5 or 6 that are listed there. You submit the reservation. You get a confirmation and an email that asks you to fill out our survey, which is the next slide, after you're done using it. We get a lot of different data from both of these, both the survey and the reservation system, that we've been able to use to track information. This data has been put together into a report annually, and just to give you some information about how our labs get used. So last year, there were over 7,000 checkouts within 2008, January 1st to December 31st. 76% of these people did check into the room, 18% canceled, and 6% just didn't show up. Next slide. If they gave a purpose for using the lab, because that was optional, then it was a meeting or a study group for the most part. Highest times a day, 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Size of groups using the labs varied across the board, as you can see. The majority are between 4 and 8, but there were very, very large groups using very, very small labs at times. Next. As far as who's using the labs, across campus, we have pretty much a broad, diverse group of majors that you see here: graphic design, physics, business, genetics, music. So they found them, and everyone is checking them out as they need to. Undergraduate students are our biggest users, 64%. Graduate students are 30%. Faculty is 4%. And then staff is 2%. As long as you have an MSU net ID and password, you can check out these labs. So as long as you're MSU affiliated, you have access to them. And as a response to were they satisfied, 93% said yes, 4 said no, and some people just weren't sure. And then as far as additional feedback, we do ask, and this is some of the reasons that we've made changes that we've made in the various labs. New markers, if you have whiteboards in there, they do dry out. One of the biggest complaints that we have is the rooms are really hot. Some of the smaller labs, like the ones that I showed you at the end that brought in all the people to use the other labs, they have a projector in the ceiling and then the SmartBoard, and they close the doors and they put in a room that we recommend 4 to 6 people, 12 people in it. So you've got all of that technology and 12 people, and they've got the door shut. So it gets pretty hot in there, and we did not have funding to do HVAC changes to allow for more airflow through there. So we do get lots of questions like that. We get many, many comments about they want more of them, and they want longer time in them, things like that. So overall, 70% of the feedback is positive, 25% is are things that we take into account and try and make changes on, and then 5% are, why are you wasting money when there's a recession? So, which is also interesting. Kara is now going to talk to you about the perspective of running one of these labs in a branch library. If you have questions, you can ask me at the end or find me later. I don't move very fast these days. So.
Thank you, Emily. Again, my name is Kara Rollins, and I'm a librarian in the Gas Business Library at MSU. I'm going to be talking about issues related to establishing and managing a collaborative technology lab in a branch library. The business library is a branch of the MSU main library, so we are a part of the one entire library system there at MSU. However, our lab was implemented and is managed completely separate from the labs that Emily talked about. In our lab, we have the following technology. You can see similar to the other labs in the main library. We also have, I forgot to put up here, a DVD player, which is really handy on your lunch hour if you are behind in your Netflix and you need a little break. Not that I know that firsthand or anything, but it is a really nice space for that. All of our all of our technology is operated using what's called a Crestron system box. I don't know if anyone has seen them or not. It controls all of your technology from one small little like LCD screen rather than having 5 or 6 remotes. So it's very handy, and we have that on top of an equipment cabinet in the room. Next slide, please. So here's just a brief small picture of the room. Okay, next slide. As I mentioned, our lab is operated and managed separately from those in the main library. Because we are a branch library, this raises a number of issues. First, the business library is located in a building that is not even operated really by MSU. We're located in the basement of the Law College building. And the MSU College of Law, even though it bears the name of MSU, it's still a private institution, and it's completely separate from MSU. So they have a very weird, loose affiliation with MSU. This results in the business library having to operate among many different groups. The main library, because we're part of the library system, the College of Business, because we are the business library, the Law College, since we reside in their basement, and then MSU overall. So we deal with a lot of different people when we have facilities issues. So we had a number of issues in setting up the lab, as well as we do today operating it. Funds for the lab came mostly from the Classroom Technology Fund that Emily mentioned that funded the other rooms in the main library. However, we had no say in the design of the room. It was kind of a clandestine operation. I don't know, honestly, how it all got started. I was just put in charge of it. But those that decided that we needed the room they said, hey, okay, the business library has this great, perfect size, larger group study room. We can put a technology lab in there. And then I guess they thought they were, building some top secret device or something because they locked us out of the room. So even though we're in the library, we can't even get into our own group study room and see what's going on. So for a while there, we didn't even have a key to the room. They changed the locks and didn't tell us. So it was rather interesting to begin with. This was much different than the labs that were designed in the main library, where Emily was heavily involved in the planning and design, and as well as the labs in the engineering library. Okay, so because there were so many groups involved, it took almost 1.5 years to complete this room, even though it's a very small room. You could see from the picture, it didn't have, an obscene amount of technology or anything like that. So we're just getting up and running right now and beginning to promote it much more. Also, because it was started by a number of different groups, we didn't get all of the equipment that we originally wanted. Emily mentioned there's cameras in the main library labs that students can use to record their presentations. We still don't have a camera yet. And they didn't see the need for a computer in the room, which doesn't make sense to me at all since it's going to be a technology lab. But eventually the library, the main library, found a laptop for us. So we do use that in the room. If people need it, they can check it out and use it in that room. Otherwise, they can use their own laptop. So it has been a little bit frustrating to begin with. Okay. For us to acquire this lab in the business library, there were a certain number of restrictions placed on it in terms of who could use it as well. Priority must be given to the College of Business students, faculty, and staff, and those of the School of Labor, as well as some affiliated departments across campus that use the business library quite frequently, such as advertising and retailing. Because of this restriction, we can't use the really nifty online reservation system that Emily showed, because there's no way on there that we can have people mark, okay, yeah, I'm a business major, and prove that they really are. So to reserve this room, either faculty, students, or staff of any of these different departments across campus can contact a librarian, email us, call us, stop in, and reserve the room. We just kind of obviously ask them, how they're affiliated with either the College of Business or School of Labor, what they're using the room for, and then we make a reservation using our Angel course management system, which is similar to Blackboard, and we just put it on the calendar in there, and this calendar is available to all library student assistants, librarians, and full-time staff in the business library, so they can check it every morning and see if there's a reservation, if someone's coming in to use the room or not. And right now we reserve it up to 4 hours, but we can extend that, if there's a department meeting that needs to be in there all day, that kind of thing. We're very liberal about the policy right now. When the patron comes to use the room, we check out a binder to them, check their ID, and then check out a binder to them that has all the help guides and manuals in there on how to use the room. And then we can check out a laptop to them as well if they need it. And then we have our student assistants or the librarians. We check the room before and after they use it and have a checklist they have to sign to make sure all the equipment is still in place and nothing is damaged. Okay. Librarians, however, are only there until 9 p.m. Mondays through Wednesdays. And obviously, as Emily mentioned, users of these rooms like to come in at night and work a lot later. So we didn't want to restrict the hours just to, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, using this lab. We wanted other students that were working late at night to actually use the room. So because of all of our restrictions on who can use it, we had to develop a lot more many more procedures for our student assistants to follow at night when someone comes to the room. And now that they're learning more about this room, they're like, hey, I know you have this larger group study room that can seat about 12, 15 people, and they want to use it. Well, we don't want to turn our library assistants into, library cops and have to turn people away. So we've come up with a number of procedures for them to follow if patrons come up at night and want to use the room. What they do is they follow pretty much the same procedures as before. They take if a student comes up to the desk and wants to use the room. They do have to be a larger group, though. We tell them, they at least have to be 3 in a group, if not more. We might have to make that bigger if we find that like one person's coming in and using it and, larger groups want to use it. So we may have to change that in the future. But right now, at least 3 people have to be in the room to use it. They can come up at night and ask to use it, and our student assistants who work at night until 1 p.m. or 1 a.m. just we'll check out the binder to them the same way, check the room before and after, and sign off on a checklist, make sure all the equipment is there. But we also have a special form that the student or group using the room has to fill out, which makes them indicate on there, how they're affiliated with the College of Business or advertising, and especially important, how they're using the room, like what technology they're using, because we're finding a lot of students aren't even using the technology. They just want the larger group study room. So we really want to discourage that from happening. I even got a call from a sorority group who wanted to use the room, and so unfortunately I had to turn them away. If they were a business-related group, I would have let them, but they were not, So we are getting a little more popular. Again, we strongly emphasize for our student assistants, that it should be a larger group. They should be using the technology. So far, it hasn't been a problem, as I mentioned. We haven't publicized it quite as much. We're working on that right now, and in the fall, we'll be publicizing it heavily when the students come back. But it has been very, very popular. We've already had a video conferencing in there for a class, and that went over extremely well. As Emily mentioned, though, we did realize that if you have a larger group in there, it does get incredibly hot. And so we do have that issue to deal with, especially when you have all the equipment on. And for some reason, I think there was a special on extremely large classroom projectors, because the projector that is in our 20 by 12 room is made for a classroom that holds 600 students. So imagine your Zenith TV from the 70s mounted on the ceiling, and it is hot when it comes on. So it definitely generates a lot of heat in that room. So we have that issue to deal with. Other things we learn is definitely be involved in the design and planning of the room, like from the very beginning. I unfortunately came in kind of halfway through, and a lot of the issues were already, finalized before we could even have a say in them. And unfortunately, because of funding, we tried to get new furniture later on for the room, and we couldn't. So we're just kind of making do with what we have, but it works. And definitely, get what you asked for. Like I said, we're still waiting on a camera, and teleconferencing has been very heavily requested. So we hope to get that soon. Any questions?
For Emily, please. You referred to in one of the slides types of technology. You referred to specialized software. Could you elaborate on that? How do you choose it, or do you choose it, or?
For that, we talked to.
Could you repeat the question?
I'm sorry. What type of specialized software was I referring to on the technology slide? And how did we go about choosing that? The specialized software was chosen actually by departments that we talked to through our bibliographers. We sent out all sorts of inquiries about what they had available in their departments, what things were heavily used, what things students would really like to see if they could go to a place where that software was available and check it out. Because a lot of software, as we all know, is very expensive. Students don't necessarily have the money. If it's not on computer lab computers, then how do they get access to it to do their coursework? Types of software varied from GIS software, CAD design software, Adobe products that are more high-end than you might find, engineering software. I mean, there were about 12 departments that we purchased software specifically for that could also be used by other departments as well. We've had some audio editing, video editing software that was purchased. And then we tried to track without actually tracking what they do on the computer, because that would have violated university policy. trying to track how often that software was actually used, and it ended up being used by such a small population of the people using the labs, it wasn't just economical for us to continue to do that. So we promoted as much as we could that it was there. Had it gotten higher use, we would have continued. Also, at the same time, MSU purchased several of the products and put it on the computer lab software. So we allowed for the IT department at MSU to continue to purchase these instead of us.